Hi folks, HR Funk here with my Tizosh Raider, which has now cycled 1,000 rounds of 45 ACP ammunition. And at this point, I am much more well acquainted with this handgun than I was previously. And in this update, I want to tell you what I've learned about the Raider, how it's performed, and generally let you know what you can expect if you decide to purchase a Raider for yourself. As you can see, my pistol still bears evidence of the last couple of hundred rounds to cycle through it. In fact, I just finished up yesterday with the last 200 rounds to bring the pistol up to 1,000. And I'm going to give you a close-up look at the wear that the pistol has experienced during the course of this video. I'm also going to be cleaning it so you can see these parts better. Now, no, I'm not going to make you sit through a video of me cleaning the handgun. I'm going to be cleaning it, and then when I get the parts clean, I will show you the up-close look, and you can get an idea of what the wear patterns look like. So in any case, that's the intro for this video on the 1,000 round update for the Raider. Let's get started. So the first thing I'll go into with the Raider is reliability. And overall, the reliability with the Raider has been very good. I've run it mostly with ball ammunition from various manufacturers, but I have run some hollow points in the handgun. And some of you know that early on I had some hollow points from Hot Munitions. The specific bullet was the Hornady Action pistol bullet, which is a very cone-shaped bullet, and the pistol did not want to feed those bullets from the factory magazines. I had several stoppages in one magazine that I was trying to shoot, but with other types of hollow points, like the standard defensive hollow points from Hot Munitions that has a more rounded bullet profile, as well as the hollow points that I typically use for my 45s for defensive purposes, that being Federal's Hydra-Shok ammunition, I have not had any problems feeding from the factory magazines or from any of my Wilson Combat or Chip McCormick magazines. I did run into an issue with Blazer brass ammunition between shots 600 and 700, and I had several stoppages with the Blazer brass, and this was 230 grain ball ammunition, which surprised me. And initially I thought it was a problem with the magazine that I was using, but I had several different magazines out there that day, and I experienced the same failure with all the magazines. And the specific failure was a failure to feed from the magazine into the chamber. When I got home, I measured the overall length of the Blazer brass ammunition and compared it to the Hot Munitions 230 grain ball ammo, which runs fine. And the Blazer brass was slightly longer in its average overall cartridge length. On average, the Blazer brass was about 13 1/1000ths of an inch longer than the Hot Munitions ammunition. And at the extreme, I found a couple that were 15 1/1000ths of an inch over the overall cartridge average length of the Hot Munitions ammunition. So that doesn't sound like much. It surprises me that that would cause it to have some failures to feed, but I couldn't find anything else to explain those failures. So I will say that the Raider pistol might be slightly ammunition sensitive, so the lesson here is the same as always, and that is to make sure that you test your handgun with the ammunition you're intending to use in it to make sure that you're getting good functioning. Everything else that I ran through it for ball ammunition, whether it was Winchester or Federal or Hot Munitions or Spear or PPU, I ran a variety of different 230 grain ball ammunition loads through this handgun, factory loads that is, and they ran very, very well. So it just seemed to be something with that Blazer brass ammo that this handgun didn't like, and that didn't seem to occur with the other types of ball ammunition that I was using. Now, as a result of those functioning issues I was having with the Blazer brass ammo, I discovered something else about the Raider, and that's the fact that it likes to run wet. More so than with my other 1911s, the Raider seems to tend to prefer to have a lot of lubricant on it. And after that initial range session where I was having problems with the Blazer brass, I came home, I thoroughly cleaned the pistol, and I lubricated it, and lubricated it a little bit more than I typically would with my other 1911s. And when I went back out to the range, I took some more of that Blazer brass ammo, and when I ran it through the handgun that time around, I had a couple of stoppages, but not nearly as many as I'd had the previous session when I went out, and that just tended to indicate to me that this pistol does like to run with a little bit more lube than you typically would run on a 1911, or at least than I would typically run on my 1911s. Next, let's talk about accuracy. And the first thing I'll do is roll in some footage that I took when I was out shooting at the range, and I'll annotate at the bottom the distances I was shooting and any other pertinent information so you have a good idea of what you're looking at. Then when we come back, I'll show you some other targets that I shot while I was out at the range when I didn't have the camera set up, and just give you an overall picture of the accuracy you can expect with the Raider pistol. So beyond what you saw in the range footage, I've got some other targets to show you here that I shot during times that I didn't have the camera set up. And something to keep in mind, both with some of what you saw in the range footage and some of what I'm going to be showing you on these targets, is most of these are 9-shot groups. I was loading up the magazine to full capacity with a round in the chamber and then firing out all that ammunition. So these weren't 3-shot groups, they weren't 5-shot groups, these are 9-shot groups in most instances, and it's easier to not get shaky when you're firing just 3 shots or just 5 shots. By the time your hand has absorbed 7 or 8 rounds of full power 45 ACP ammunition, sometimes those groups start to open up a little bit. So also, some of these I have noted the best 5-shot group or the best 7-shot group or whatever, because I think by the time I've shot 9 shots in some of these groups, we're getting into some human error. This first one is some of that Blazer brass ammunition that I was talking about. And even though I had some functioning issues, the accuracy was pretty good. This is from the bench at a distance of 25 yards. And the entire group measures 3 inches. And the best 7 shots out of those measures 1 3/4 inches. So this group down here is the best 7 in under 2 inches. So I thought that was pretty good. The next one is also a benched group. This was with Federal 230 grain ball ammunition, again from 25 yards. The entire group measures 3 1/4 inches, and the best 7 on this is 2 3/8 inches. So again, from 25 yards for a non-match handgun firing standard ball ammunition, I was very happy with these. Got another one coming up here. This is Hot Munitions, rested at 25 yards. With this one, it's a 4-inch group with the best 5 in 2 3/4 inches. Here's a fun one. This was standing at 10 yards, and I was firing controlled pairs with this. Now, these were not double taps. I was not coming up as fast as I could and wrapping off 2 shots as quick as I could hit the trigger. This was a tempo sort of like bang, bang. So I had a sight picture for each shot that I fired, but I was firing pairs of shots. This was from a distance of 10 yards, and I don't think I measured this. Oh, and this was actually 2 magazines. I started out with a round in the chamber and fired all 9 shots. Then I switched and put a second 8-round magazines in and fired another 8 rounds of controlled pairs. So altogether, that's 17 shots from 10 yards firing at a controlled pair shot tempo. This one is from 10 yards, and this is with Winchester white box. .230 grain ball ammo, and 8 of the 9 shots are in 1.5 inches from that distance of 10 yards, and the entire group is 2.5 inches. So standing, unsupported, 10 yards, and there is the 9-shot group. The last one is one that this might be the best group I have ever fired with a handgun. I'm not sure. This is 9 rounds standing, unsupported, from a distance of 7 yards. This is Remington .230 grain full metal jacket ball ammo into 3/4 inch, forming one hole. So I was very proud of that. The only other group that I've had that I thought was as impressive as this came with, of all things, PPU .230 grain ball ammo from a distance of 25 yards, and I'll flash that group up on the screen now so you can see what it looked like. And off the top of my head, I don't remember, that was around a 2-inch group from 25 yards that I shot standing unsupported. And I've not been able to replicate that group since then, and believe me, I've tried, but I also haven't had any more of that specific kind of ammunition to try. I'd like to get some more of that and see if the Raider just has a preference for that when it comes to accuracy. So again, the limiting factor when it comes to accuracy with the Raider is the shooter. If you keep the sights lined up through the course of the trigger pull, the bullets are going to go where you want them to go. And I have been very, very impressed with the accuracy of the Raider. Trigger pull. It seemed to me in the course of the last couple of 100 rounds with the Raider that the trigger improved noticeably. I'm not sure if a burr wore off one of the parts or what might have happened, but it just seemed like I noticed a very definite improvement in a positive way for the trigger, as I said, during the course of that last 100 rounds. And I'm going to weigh the trigger here shortly to see where it's breaking now after 1,000 rounds. When I very first got the pistol and it was brand new and unfired, I had a 3-pull average with this handgun of, I believe, 5 pounds 6 ounces. So we'll see if that has come down any, and even if it hasn't, if the weight is still the same, it just feels better. It feels like it's breaking more cleanly than it did before. So let's take a look and see. I'll get out my Lyman trigger pull gauge and find out exactly where this trigger is breaking now. And here's the Raider set up in the vise, ready for us to check the trigger pull. And I'm going to get my gauge ready to go, make sure everything is cleared out of it from previous tests. And I will be surprised if the trigger pull weight has not come down some. First pull is 4 pounds 13.5 ounces. Let's try a second pull. And I overpulled this slightly. That actually broke at 4 pounds 13 ounces again, but I couldn't stop the gauge in time, so it came up 4 pounds 14.4 ounces. Let's see if I can do a little bit better job this time around. And that was a much better job. 4 pounds 12.9 ounces for a 3-pull average of 4 pounds 13 ounces. So it's down to just over 4 3/4 pounds after 1,000 rounds. So that's a reduction of about 7 or 8 ounces. I'd have to do the math on that for sure, but it's come down about half a pound from the time that it was brand new. I still wouldn't mind having it a little closer to 4.5 pounds, but that's not bad for a factory trigger. Now, along with the trigger pull weight, also, as I said before, is the quality which I believe has improved during the time that I've been using this pistol. The break is very clean. There's the reset. And it just feels good. I still prefer the short trigger on a 1911, and obviously the Raider uses the long trigger. And I think part of that reason is because it makes a long reach for me if I'm trying to keep my thumb on top of the safety and depress the grip safety and reach that trigger. It just makes a long reach for me. Now, if I use the traditional shooting grip, the thumb over thumb grip like I was taught in the Marine Corps, then there's no problem with the trigger reach. There's no problem with the grip safety being depressed. Obviously, I'm not holding down on the thumb safety, but if I use that grip, there's no problem whatsoever. But if I'm using this grip, then again, that just makes kind of a long reach with that long trigger. For me personally, if the Raider was set up with the arched mainspring housing and the short trigger, I would be happier with that arrangement, but that would not be in keeping with the M45A1 that this pistol is trying to clone. So for that reason, I will keep it the way it is. I'm not going to alter it in any way and change the trigger or change the mainspring housing. But I kind of wish the Marine Corps, when they opted for the M45A1, had gone with the arched mainspring housing and short trigger. Unfortunately, they did not. And I realize most shooters like this arrangement with the flat mainspring housing and the long trigger, so that would be my guess as to why they did so. The sights on the Raider worked out just fine for me. The 3-dot arrangement is something I have been using for a long, long time. And we'll aim in at my sniper over there and make him nervous. How's that sound? But there was plenty of air on either side of the front sight in order for me to get a good sight picture. I didn't have any problem with that at all. Now, I was wearing my reading glasses various times when I was shooting for accuracy, so there was that. But in any case, this sight worked perfectly fine. Now, the actual M45A1, as some of you know, uses night sights, which the Raider does not have, but at an MSRP of, what, $750 on a 1911, I don't know that you could really expect night sights. And as I said, this arrangement works very well for me, and I don't expect that I'm going to be using this particular handgun too often in low light conditions anyway. The other place where the Raider departs from the M45A1 is in the dimensions of the equipment rail. And this rail is slightly smaller than the one used on the M45A1. Even so, I mounted a light on here and did some shooting. You might have caught it in one of the videos a while back. I'll roll in some footage. And there was no problem with functioning when I had the light installed. Obviously, there was no problem with the light staying attached. So the equipment rail, for all intents and purposes, is going to be just fine, even though, as I said, it does depart somewhat dimensionally from the M45A1. Other various features of the pistol I have noted in past videos. The grips work just fine. They have a great texture. You're able to grasp the handgun and keep a good hold on it while shooting. The grip screws I did have some problems with loosening when I would go out and shoot. Somewhere around the 500 round mark, I went ahead and Loctited the grip screws, and I've not had an issue with them since. The grip safety works just fine. I really never had too much trouble making sure that that was depressed to the point that the pistol would fire. But as I said before, it does make a long reach for me when I am trying to accomplish that while holding down the thumb safety and reaching that long trigger. Some of you know that I replaced the plunger tube spring because early on with this handgun I had some problems with the slide stop engaging when there was still ammunition in the magazine. I replaced this with a Wilson Combat spring. That was a repair that cost me all of about $5 and 5 minutes, and since that time I'm happy to say that problem has not reoccurred. The other benefit to that is it made the functioning of the thumb safety much more positive. The magazines have also worn in nicely. I think the springs have relaxed just a little bit during the time that I've been using them. They seem to be a little bit easier to load, not that they were difficult to begin with. Most of the last 500 or so rounds that I cycled through the pistol have been with the factory magazines, and they have been performing very, very well. There was a time when the pistol was very dirty, that one of the magazines was failing to lock the slide open after the last round, but after a cleaning, that problem went away and has not reoccurred since that time. And now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I am going to start cleaning the pistol. You might notice that it needs it. And like I said, I am not going to feature the entire cleaning process for all of you to have to sit through. What I'm going to do is clean the various parts and then show them to you when they're clean. I might show them to you when they're dirty also, so you can see what this looks like after about 200 rounds of ammunition has been cycled through. But I will show them to you when you're clean, and we can take a look at the wear patterns. So here are the parts in what I'll call their pre-cleaning stage. And you'll notice as you look at the various parts of the handgun that there is quite a bit of lubricant present. As I mentioned before, the Raider is happiest when I run it wet, and I like to keep it happy. So as you see these parts coming up again, they will be much cleaner and easier to see what type of wear has been occurring during the course of this 1,000 round test. And I'm going to get started on the cleaning. So first up is the slide, which hopefully now looks a lot better than it did the last time you saw it. And there is some minor finish wear to the exterior of the slide. You see right there in front of the ejection port. And that's really the only blemish I see on the outside of the slide after 1,000 rounds. Oh, and by the way, for anyone that's wondering about the rubber gloves that I'm wearing, I learned a long time ago as an armorer that if you clean a lot of firearms frequently and your skin is constantly exposed to cleaning solvents, that can cause some problems. So I take the precaution of wearing rubber gloves. If you rarely clean firearms, that's probably not so much a concern, but if you clean them a lot, and as I said, you're exposed to a lot of cleaning solvent, that might be something you want to do as well. Turning our attention to the inside of the slide, if I can keep from knocking my camera over, we can see some light wear on the rails, which once again is more cosmetic than anything else. There is a look at the breech face and also the extractor, if I can get a good angle for the extractor hook there. And most of what you see inside the slide is just wear to the Cerakote finish. There's some burnishing on the locking lugs, and I mentioned that in the 600 round update, and it's not progressed a great deal beyond where it was then, which is what I tend to notice with this sort of wear, or burnishing I should say. You tend to notice the most at the very beginning or the first few hundred rounds, and after that it tends to taper off quite a bit. I don't think it ever actually stops, but it just doesn't progress as quickly as it does when the pistol is brand new. So now I will move on to the frame and we'll take a look at it. And here's the frame, now looking nice and spiffy. And I really don't see much exterior finish wear to the frame at all, other than something that I've shown previously, and that is right under the thumb safety there. There's a little bit of wear to the Cerakote, but it is not bad at all, and beyond that I don't see any at all. Turning our attention to the inside, if I can light this up, again there's very little wear to the frame rails. There's really not even a lot of finish wear to the frame rails. There's a close-up, if I can get it to focus, on the feed ramp. And I really don't think it looks much different than it did at the very beginning after cycling 1,000 rounds. By the way, I know all you jarheads out there are watching to see how clean I get this thing, and you're waiting to yell at me if you think it's not inspection ready. So for all of you watching, white Q-tip, still white. Yeah, still mostly white. All right, I might have a little bit more work to do. But overall, the wear to the frame is virtually non-existent. I think I'm done playing in solvent, so I took my gloves off. You can now get a look at the barrel. And much as we saw with the interior of the slide, there is some of that burnishing to the barrel. You can see that there. Nothing major. The barrel feed ramp, again, looks much the same as it did in the beginning. And I'll try to get a look down the bore. That's always a little bit of a challenge. See what I can do here. That certainly didn't help. There we go. That's not too bad. And yes, as you can see, I got it clean. Got a little bit of wear to the slide stop that you can see there, which is mostly just the finish being removed from that locking surface. Now you recall I did mention that there was a period of time where I was having some failures for the slide to lock open on an empty magazine, and I think that might have just been some grit that got somewhere in here and was impeding the movement of the slide stop. Because as I said, I brought it home and I scrubbed this well and also cleaned the interior of the frame and the slide stop hole, and I didn't have any more problems with the slide not locking open on the empty magazine. So again, I think that was probably just something, a piece of foreign material that got into an area where it should not have been in the first place. And we've got the barrel bushing here. There might be just a little bit of wear that we can see inside there. This is of course difficult to see, especially when I can't keep the light where it needs to be. But based on the accuracy that I'm seeing with this handgun, both the barrel and the barrel bushing are in good shape and doing a very good job. And just for the sake of being thorough, I've got the recoil spring plug that you see here and the recoil spring guide, neither one of which shows any wear whatsoever. Something I was a little bit curious about was the condition of the recoil spring after cycling 1,000 rounds. And this is the factory recoil spring that you see here. And this is an unused recoil spring, and I will try to get them lined up. That looks pretty close. So it looks like the factory spring might have lost 3/8 of an inch in length, which doesn't seem to have done much damage. But again, I just did want to kind of take a look at that and compare it to an unused spring. So as I reassemble the pistol, I'll go over what I've been doing to lubricate it. The first thing I do before I reinstall the barrel is completely lube the recoil lugs, or the locking lugs I should say. And I also add a drop or two to the toggle link. And I'll slide that in place. By the way, this little demonstration is probably going to be enough to get this video demonetized by YouTube. Okay, I'm going to set that off to the side for a moment. Next, I'm going to lube the frame rails, and I run a pretty good strip of oil or bead of oil, whatever your preferred term might be, along the top of these rails, because the slide of course rests on that. Then I do the same thing along the sides. And again, this is a little bit more lube than I use on my other handguns, to include my other 1911s. But the Raider seems to like this. And I get some down here into this bottom rail. And since I put this much lube on the frame itself, I don't put any on the slide, because this is going to be sufficient for both the frame and the slide. And it appears the link is in the proper place. We'll get the slide stop back in here. And last but not least, get the recoil spring plug installed. Work that lube in a little bit, and what I do is wipe off the excess from the rear. I let the pistol keep what it wants and wipe away any that it doesn't want. I'm also going to add a little bit right here around the barrel. So that surface between the muzzle and the barrel bushing is well lubed. And you can already see that I have sufficient lubricant in here that it is coming out and getting on the pistol itself. So I'm going to wipe off the excess, and that's going to do it for my reassembly and lubrication. And there's the Raider, cleaned, lubed, and happy after its 1,000 round test. By the way, for anyone who's interested, my lubricant is Mobil 1 synthetic motor oil. I use that on all my firearms as a lubricant only, not a preservative, and it does a very, very good job. So there you go, folks. That is the 1,000 round update on my Tizosh Raider. This handgun really has lived up to my every expectation. It very well does replicate the look, feel, and shooting experience of the Marine Corps' M45A1, but it didn't require me to spend several $1,000s to obtain one of those actual M45A1 pistols. So I have very much enjoyed the Raider. I've enjoyed running the 1,000 rounds through it. And I hope all of you have enjoyed the various updates and this series that I put together with the Tizosh Raider. And that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off your purchase from Optics Planet. Also remember the discount code from Hot Munitions, and if it were not for Hot Munitions, I would not have the Raider for this review. It was due to some quick action by the folks there that I was able to purchase this handgun before they disappeared for a while. As I understand it, they are starting to reappear. But they got this in for me. They also provided some of the ammunition that I used during the course of this 1,000 round test. So if you go to Hot Munitions, check out their inventory. And remember, that is a veteran-run organization, folks. Those are all individuals working there who served our country. They are veterans, and they're great people. I have a discount code there, which is HRFUNK10, and if you use that discount code, it'll save you 10% from your purchase at Hot Munitions. And last but not least, remember the Target sponsor for the channel. Go to Target's online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your Target needs. See you next time, folks. Until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.